Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast. And today for my $1 Million Lab series, I am joined by serial entrepreneur Bryan Clayton. Take it away, Bryan. Come and introduce yourself and tell people what it is that you do in this world.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joanna. My name's Bryan Clayton. I am CEO and co-founder of a company called GreenPal. And so GreenPal is a mobile app that works like Uber, but for lawn mowing. So if you live in the United States and you have a home or you rent a home and you need to get your grass cut, this is a chore we all have to take care of. You can just download GreenPal and you'll get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service in less than a minute. Rather than calling around on Craigslist or Yelp or Facebook, you can just download our app and magically get it done. Been at this business for almost a decade. My two co-founders and I guess you could say we're an 8-year overnight success. It took a long time to get this marketplace going, but now we're doing well. We have a few 100,000 people using the app to get their grass cut, doing over $20 million a year in sales in the lawn mowing business, and profitable. We're bootstrapped. We haven't raised any outside capital, and so we've just kind of been humming along, grinding it out. Before GreenPal, I actually had a landscaping company, a traditional lawn mowing business that I started in high school as a way to make extra cash. Stuck with that business for 15 years, and little by little built the business from just me and a push mower to me and 150 employees, eventually getting that lawn mowing business over 10 million a year in revenue. And in 2013, the business was acquired by one of the largest landscaping businesses in the United States. And so growing that business from just me and a push mower to me and 150 people, I learned a lot, how to get a business going. And after I sold it, I retired, which was nice, but I got bored and I thought, okay, it's time to get back in the game. What now? And that's when the idea for GreenPal came to mind, and my two co-founders have been working on it, haven't looked back since.
Awesome. Tell us how old you were when you first started your first lawn mowing business, because you were saying, it sounds like you were still at school.
That's right. It actually, I was very fortunate because I was dragged into entrepreneurship by my father, kicking and screaming. He came into my room one day on a hot summer day and said, "Hey, listen, get off your butt, quit playing Nintendo. I've got a gig for you. You're going to go mow the neighbor's yard." And fortunately for me, I wasn't living in a democracy. And so it wasn't a request, it was an order. And luckily he made me go mow the neighbor's yard. And after that, I was hooked. I worked for an hour and made $25, which back in the 90s was a lot of money.
That was
and I thought,
lot.
This is incredible. You mean I can just work as much as I want to and have as much money as I want? This is awesome. Why didn't anybody tell me about this before? And so the first thing I did after I got done mowing that yard was I made a bunch of flyers on my old school desktop computer and passed them out around the neighborhood and got 10 or 15 customers that first summer, and just kept working on that business little by little, kind of progressing my way through it, growing it debt-free and off of its own revenues. And after a decade of doing that, I had one of the biggest landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee where I live.
Amazing. I love it. I love hearing everybody's sort of origin stories of how they get started and things like that. And they're always so different. And I love that entrepreneurship really got you early, even though you might have been kicking and screaming to get in there. So when you talk us through selling a company that you literally started with a push mower for $10 million. Like, that is crazy. Was that a surreal moment, or was that a moment of like total satisfaction? Where were you at?
Yeah, so I think one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is that it can be your vehicle in life to take you to places you never would have been able to go. And that's certainly what business ownership has been for me. It can be the thing that you can build to make something of yourself. And if you're doing business right, every 3 or 4 years, you should evolve as a completely different person. You should completely evolve into somebody who's more humble, wiser, smarter, uh, better leader, better manager. And certainly it's been the case for me in 22 years of entrepreneurship. And that was the, he's like, is that was a surreal moment. Could you imagine it was happening? And for me, it was like, it was 15 years. It was little by little going through every level of the metaphorical video game of business. And for me, when I got to the point I was ready to sell, that was the world I was living in. That was the world I progressed to. And it was very real. It was very, no, this is where we're at. This is where we've gotten to. This is what we're doing. This is what other companies are selling for. So it was a very pragmatic thing. There wasn't like an overnight success or one move on the chessboard that got me from here to here. It was very much incremental over a long period of time. So it was a very real thing. And now GreenPal, my current business, we're doing multiple 8 figures a year in revenue. But when we first started 8 years ago, we ended our first year with 50 customers and $10,000 in total revenue. And so now here we are, almost decade later, we're doing multiple 8 figures. And it's like, and people ask me, do you ever just pinch yourself and look back and see how far you come? And the answer is no, because it's like there was never any one move that got us here. It's like, this is where we have grinded our butts off to get here. This is very real. This is, and it still feels like day one. It always feels like day one. It always feels like you have so much further to go. And that's one of the cool things about business. It is like a video game. It's like you go level 1 of Super Mario World is very different to level 9 and 10. And the problem is people are on level 1 and 2 and they're worried about Bowser. And you really shouldn't. It's like just work your way through the levels, however you define them, and just make incremental progress and do it for a long time, and you'll build something.
I love you're using this analogy of a video game, because there's been many times in my entrepreneurial journey, I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years now, and I've had lots of different businesses in that time. I've had restaurants, I've had shops and designer clothes shops, shoe shops, spiritual events, pop-up company, and then my coaching business that I have now. And there's been many times where I kind of felt like I have met the big boss at the end of the level, the big boss. Have you had any big boss moments where you're like, oh my God, this is taking everything from me right now to get me to that next level, and you're faced with a big uh-oh. I've had a few of these moments thinking about it as a video game. Yes, there's definitely been those moments where I'm like, it's not performing, but you rise and you do it.
That's right. Yeah. There's a lot, there are final boss moments in the journey, right? And so for one thing I'll say is this: if you play level 2 or level 3 over and over and over again for 10 years, it's no longer fun. So the cool thing about entrepreneurship is that it does progress. And at the end of every level, there is a new Bowser, and there is a new boss, there is a new dragon. And that's the neat thing about it, is the challenges are happening to you. They're happening for you, not to you. They're happening for you for the journey. So you evolve and you grow. And so looking back, there's several. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur until you can't make payroll. And for me, there was one day going through the 2008 Great Recession, which was really tough in the United States. Payroll for my company was like $120,000 a week, and it was due every Friday. And there was one Thursday night, I realized I had $17,000 in the company's in the company's bank accounts. And so I had to make it. I had to figure out how the hell are we going to work this? I'm not going to make payroll tomorrow. And so that was a final boss moment. It was a moment where, I had to kind of rally my team and get us all together and say, hey, listen, I've made as the leader, I've made some mistakes. I didn't see how bad this was going to be. I didn't make some cuts when I needed to make them. I didn't cut some expenses here when I should have. And now I cannot make payroll tomorrow, and I'm sorry. But I promise I will make everybody whole. And I promise we will get through it. And if anybody who doesn't want to stick it out with us, I understand. You can leave. I will make you whole. And nobody quit. And everybody stuck it out. Everybody made sacrifices, and we made the quick cuts we had to make, and we eventually did make everybody whole. And it was an opportunity for us to take the business down to the studs and rebuild it. and looking, and that crisis was one of the reasons why I was able to get the business sold 5 years later, because it leaned us out. It made us more efficient, made us more profitable. And so a lot of times you go through these final boss moments, and believe it
It
or
makes
not,
you
in 5 or 10
better.
years, you'll be glad they happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes, I've
So that,
always found it's always made me better. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that my own personal boss moments have always been about kind of things like boundaries and stuff like that, getting a little bit, creating a stronger container for the business, whether it's my boundaries with
right.
employees or whether it's how I do a thing, and how I'm holding the energy for going forward. But they take the stuffing out of
Yep.
you when you're going through them. It's not always rosy in the garden, as you go through those moments, but they do make you stronger, and they do make you, I think, more grateful for the journey in a way when it's going good. Like, I think, now in my business at the moment, I have a coaching business, and we have 4 people in our team, which is a really nice, considering we're in our 7-figure year. But so it's nice to be able to have such a small team. And when I look back and I have had 25 employees and stuff, it makes me so appreciative of my little neat, very, very effective team that's, absolutely killing it. So I love that you see it
Yeah,
like
I
a
would
video
love to tell
game.
you that yeah, the thing is it's like necessity is the mother of invention. And a lot of times when you
Mm.
go through these low points, it forces you to make those hard decisions. And it forces you to make those cuts. It forces you to do the things you should have been doing all along. And that's okay. And I don't want people that are listening to this to hear it and say, well, God, why would I subject myself to such misery? It's not all bad, but there certainly are lows. And particularly starting is tough. Sean Parker, who was the founder of Napster, was the first CEO of Facebook. In the movie The Social Network, he's played by Justin Timberlake.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Parker says starting a startup is like chewing glass, and eventually you learn to love the taste of your own blood. And that is an apt description for the first 4 years of
Oh
starting a
my
business.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope it's a lot more gentle than that. I don't know if I would agree with that one, but yes, it's not
It
for
might
the
be that might be
faint.
a little extreme.
That is very extreme. I think, there is so many different ways to do business and things like that. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, I absolutely adore working with fellow entrepreneurs and helping them elevate in their businesses and things like that, because I'm absolutely obsessed with the business world. I love it. And I love the type of people that the business world brings, because I don't think
Right.
everyone can really be an entrepreneur, to be quite honest. I know that's not a popular opinion online, especially in the online world where everyone, is told that they can be, but you got to love it, and you've got to be
Right.
willing to be consistent and be there even when it's tough. And that's
I,
what's
I
makes
agree.
sense.
I agree 100%. I'm a moderately successful guy. I have a long way to go. I've achieved a certain level of success. So am I in a position to tell somebody they can't be an entrepreneur? Not really, but I'll just tell you what Mark Cuban says. Uh, and so let me quote Mark Cuban. He says, if you have to ask, should I be an entrepreneur? The answer is no. Because if you really, if you're serious about it, there is no question. You're already working on it nights and weekends. You're already thinking about it in the shower. You've already laid out the business plan and website and started writing for the blog, even though you don't have a product. You've already tried to watch a ton of YouTube videos, and you've already tried to learn. You've already done it. So it's like
It's already a private
if you have to
obsession.
add. Exactly. Your actions have already led you to the point where you don't even have to ask the question. And I believe that. So Mark Cuban said it. He's the jerk. I'm not.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, but I fully agree. I mean, I feel like, I do feel like everybody has an ability to run some type of business, but not everybody has that the entrepreneurial blood pumping where they can become completely obsessed, and it's their own private
Yes.
obsession, and they you know, and they want to get it, and these are the people that get it into the seven figures, you know, and there
Right.
has to be an edge of obsession with it. And I
Yep.
think with obsession there has to be love. You have to have a love of what you do, or a love of the journey. It's either the love of the journey or a love of what you do, and it's often way easier if you've got a love of what you do.
Yeah, and like your entire life's force is in it. I mean, 7
Yes.
days a week, all of the energy that you have in your life is going into this business idea. To get something going from scratch, a lot of times it's what it takes. And people always ask me, well, should I follow my passion? I'm like, you know, I don't know. Like, I've never been passionate about grass cutting, but I've been in some form of the lawn mowing business for 22 years. And I retired at the age of 32 off of it. So it worked out for me, but I hate the smell of fresh cut grass. Hate it. I've mowed so many thousands of yards in my life. I don't ever want to mow another damn yard if I ever have to. So no, I've never been passionate about grass cutting. Now my purpose has been creating teams, creating products, creating businesses, creating services, creating opportunities for my employees, success, winning, growth. Like, that's my purpose. And so I think follow your purpose is a better form of advice than follow your passion, because, you know, not everybody can be an online yoga instructor. And it's like, you know, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to do something real that you can charge for. And, you know, you might not necessarily be passionate about whatever that thing is, but maybe you're passionate about some subset of it, like the progress, the winning, the journey, the business. That's your passion. That's your purpose.
Yeah, and that's the journey, isn't it? I mean, if you can get obsessed with the journey, and you love the journey, and you love that progress, and you love the thing, I think it's of equal importance. And also, as well, I mean, even in the grass cutting business, we talk a lot in my community about being of service. Because we have a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs in my community. So being of service, I think, is really an important thing. And it is, you know, even in the grass cutting business, you can see how much of service that is for someone who might not have the mobility, or might not have the opportunity to do their own grass, or like even for, you know, like even for a businessman, for instance, who just gets to spend that hour that he could have been mowing the lawn with his kids, you know, like there is a service
Exactly.
there. And that's
right. That's the way we look at it. At the end of the day, we're selling time. We sell time back to consumers and homeowners. We also sell time to service providers, because they can run through these properties more efficiently. They can run their business more efficiently. So we're in the business of selling time. And to your point, selling time for that business owner or single mom that understands they can spend $27 to have this done and not have to do it themselves, and they can spend time at more high leverage activities, whether working on their side hustle or spending time with their kids. That's what we're in the business of doing. It doesn't matter what business you're in, you have to add more value than you take. And that's the way we look at it. We always have looked at it as, if we can align ourselves with our service providers, add more value than we take out of the transaction, focus on their success, then the platform will be successful. And that's a Tony Robbins kind of mantra. It's you just focus on the success of those around you, whether it be your employees, your customers, your stakeholders. Just focus on their success, make them rich, and your success will follow.
I love that. And that is actually original teaching of Zig Ziglar, who said, you know, that you just have to help enough people get what they want, and then you'll get what you want. And it's like that.
Exactly. I believe that.
I totally
That's
believe
a fundamental
that as well.
principle of the universe.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that is really the being of service. When you serve, the universe serves you back.
That's right.
But
it's an undeniable law.
Yeah, it's an undeniable law. And it's how you show up in that service. Because I think it's so many people show up in that service in resentment. And then the law doesn't work for them, right? But when you show up in that service, just fully being like, how can I make this person's life better? And I love that piece that you said, you know, you have to give more value than you receive. Like, oh my God,
you can't break that law.
Yes. And
maybe in the short run.
Yeah, maybe but if you want a long-term business, no way.
In the long run, it always comes back to haunt you. It just always does. You can't break it. You just can't deny it. And a lot of times these things take a long time to play out. It's like I give. Well, it's like, okay, but really you've only been doing this for 9 months. Let's give it 5 years and let's track our progress. Let's set little goals along the way. Let's just knock them down and achieve them, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, but if it's worth building, it's okay if it takes a while. I talk a lot about evolution and growth over a lifetime, and every
That's
single
right.
like an increment of building. And like there's probably no way when you were with your push mower thinking, if I just keep at this is $10 million down the line. Like no way
Yeah,
that
yeah.
two worlds would have ever been like connecting for you.
No,
And yet that is where that dedication of just showing up, giving more
that's
value
right.
than you were receiving, and then
Yep.
boom, there was this moment.
And before you know it, 10 years later, it's business ownership and entrepreneurship is full of all these dichotomies, all of these kind of paradoxes that you kind of have to like reconcile and hold in your brain. I read a quote one time, like one of the hallmarks of a brilliant mind is the ability to hold two conflicting viewpoints in your head at the same time. And business ownership is kind of like that because you have all these paradoxes. It's like, do I listen to the customer or do I not listen to them and like build something innovative that they don't even know they want? Like it's tough to reconcile that. And another one is like you have to have this huge ambitious goal. Like I want to sell this business for $10 million, but then you also have to think and act very, 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 very small. And so it's like, is it big? Is it audacious? Or is it very tiny? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so you have to reconcile both those. And so thinking and acting small over and over again. And it's for me, it was just me and a crappy push mower. For me and a $90 push mower. And then eventually after a decade, I had like 90 trucks going out every day, loaded down with $100,000 of equipment, each one of them. And so it took a long time to get there, but thinking and acting small and doing that over and over and over again, it could begin to compound. And that's how you get to a point where you're in a different world that you never thought you'd be. The business was a vehicle that got you there.
Let's talk about that piece, the compounding piece, because this is a piece that I talk about inside one of my communities called Divine Planning Abundant Profits, where I teach business in that community. And the compound effect is coming from that being consistent. And I always say to my peeps, I wish I could make consistency like really super, super sexy for you, but it's just not going to be. It's just one of these things we got to do and we got to keep being consistent at. But the compound effect is a very, very real effect. And most people understand the compound effect from the banking world, that your money will compound if you keep putting smaller and smaller amounts. The interest will get larger and larger as that amount compounds. But
yeah, it's easy to understand in financial terms.
Yeah. But in business terms, it's very hard to see your small daily action as actually being part of that larger compound effect. And I mean, I think your story is such a classic example of the compound effect with the little $90 push mower to 90 trucks with $100,000 worth of equipment on the back. I mean, like that in 10 years, that in itself is a phenomenal achievement. But it started from that little bitty mower, and that's what it is. It's about that compound effect.
Yeah, it's to your point. It's when you quantify it in like a banking, like a loan environment, it kind of makes sense. But to your point, it's hard to quantify it like in the daily consistency. I think consistency is a superpower. Like if you can be consistent, it is on the level of a superhuman power. And because that's what unlocks like this compounding effect. I think Warren Buffett said like compound interest was the 8th or 9th wonder of the world. And you read the book, the autobiography of Warren Buffett called The Snowball Effect is about compound interest. And the snowball starts very, very small, and then it goes down the hill and it gets very, very big. And you got Warren Buffett, who's the greatest investor of all time, started with a $50,000 loan, and 40 years later was at one point the wealthiest man in the world. It's a demonstration of what compound interest looks like, and not just in financial terms. And in doing the right things day in, day out over a long period of time, thinking high leverage and doing it over and over again. And one thing that Warren Buffett, like a mantra he lives his life by, is he would say, I don't look at $100 like $100. I look at $100 as $1,000 because that's what it will become. And every decision he made was through that lens. It's like, it is 10x bigger than it is because through compound interest and me doing these things, it will become that. And I think that's, if you can just kind of hold that in your head and understand that it's the consistency, it's the relentlessness. If you do it over a long period of time, the small things become big. And sure, these things are easy to say, they're hard to do. And one thing that has helped me kind of like reconcile the actual like execution of it is you have this stuff called output metrics and input metrics. So output metrics might be like, this year we want to grow sales by 30%. Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, let's go back to, that's the output metric. The input metric is on a monthly basis, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And that means on a weekly basis, we got to do X, Y, and Z. It goes down to a daily and hourly basis.
Yeah.
I've got to send 100 pitches to 100 journalists. I got to write 1 blog post. I've got to talk to 10 customers, and I have to answer 20 support emails on a daily basis. These are hypothetical things, but like, these are the actual inputs to grow sales by 30%. It comes back to those tactical execution things, but it's the consistency on those things that where the big stuff gets to become, the small stuff becomes big.
Absolutely. And it's something that I've said, you know, like, I think it's one of the secrets behind the success of my current business is the fact that I never started growing $1,000 a month business, even though I wasn't even making $1,000 a month in the beginning, right? Like I always had my eye on the bigger price. And the first goal that I really wanted to achieve was at 6 figures a year. And then from 6 figures a year, I wanted to take it to 7 figures. And obviously beyond that, it's multiple 7 figures. But as we look at that and moving, you know, it was like, even though, you know, and even though when I was in the early days and there would be small amounts of people showing up because nobody knew who I was, you know, it builds and it builds and it builds. But I showed up for those people like I was showing up for 4,000 people.
Right.
And, you know,
exactly.
And I, like, because I was always like, no, this will grow. And if I show up and I give my best and I give my absolute, like what I would give for 4,000 people, for these people, they're going to go out, they're going to tell their friends, and then it's going to keep going and going. And then it incremented up very, very rapidly. I love
exactly.
Now,
everything that's big starts small.
Yes.
Everything that's big starts small. And that's the way we looked at it too. It's like our first year, we had a goal for 100 customers in a week, 100 transactions in a week. And we only hit 57, but the following year we hit 250. And I knew that if we can get 200, we can get 2,000. And I know if we can get 2,000, we can get 20,000. I know if we can get 20,000, we get 200,000. And so it's like, don't worry about 20,000, worry about the 200, get the 200 to 2,000, just work your way to that stage of the game.
Keep going.
Because everything that's big does start small. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like you said, if I got 10 people that shows up, if I have
delighted.
10 people show up, yeah. Because I know 10 will be 100, and I know 100 can be 1,000.
The way that I always describe it is when people inside my community, sometimes they're a little bit bummed, right? They put all this effort out, and then they're like, only 10 people signed up, you know, and I'm like, okay, so how many did you want? And they say like 50. And I said, okay, start counting to 50. And they're like, what, now? And I'm like, yeah. And they go like, 1,
now
2, 3, 4, and then they start counting, and then they get to 10, and then when they get to 11 and 12, and I said, how did you get to 11 and 12? You had to get through 10, right? So how are you going to get through 50? You had to go through 10. So if we can't be happy for 10, you're not going to be happy at 50. Trust me, you got to be happy.
That's exactly right.
You know, like it's that
exactly.
increment.
And you learn how to get from 10 to 50 by getting from 1 to 10.
Well, this is something else I wanted to talk to you about, because trust me when I tell you, in my own business, I really didn't want the 50 in the beginning. I thought I wanted the 50 in the beginning, but what you're capable of at 10 is so much different than what you're capable of at 50, right? And you would be so embarrassed if 50 people showed up and you gave them the same service that you gave the sort of 10, because between the 10 and the 50, you grow so much as a human, and your company gets better and you get better and everything gets better.
That's right.
So I'm like, trust me when I tell you that when you get the numbers that you really desire and that you really want, like you're going to be so happy that they came at that time and not before, because there's going to be little mistakes that you don't even know you're making right now, and you
Yeah,
put 50 people into that mistake and it's a nightmare. But you can't work all the kinks out on the road, and then you get to the 50 and you're like, yeah, now I'm ready for this.
exactly. It's literally like you're 8 years old, you got the Nintendo for Christmas, and you open up Super Mario Brothers, but you can only play level 3 over and over and over and over and over and over again. You can't get like the game won't go past level 3. Well, that's gonna suck. And so like levels 1, 2, and 3 are fun, but you want to play level 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so to your point, it's like you evolved.
Yes.
Your ambition evolved. What you wanted from life evolved and grew and matured. The business was the thing that got you there, and that's one of the really neat things about it. You changed, you evolved, and that's happened to me about a dozen times in 20 years, where things that I didn't think I wanted or things I didn't think I was capable of came to be because the business got me there. And I think that's one of the cool things about it. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's an important, it's a worthwhile thing to dedicate your life to.
Yeah.
And because it will take you places you never thought you would go.
Oh God, absolutely, absolutely. What I've achieved and where I've been and people and places that I've spoken at and things like that is incredible. One of the things I've picked up on, you've quoted quite a lot of business greats like Tony Robbins and Warren Buffett and things. So I get this little impression that you are literally no stranger to a good seminar or like business self-development workshop. Is this something that you actively engage in?
Yeah, I think, okay, here's a couple ways to look at it. First of all, let's just start with saying this, like start a business, you're going to evolve, you're going to grow, you're going to learn, because you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to invest in your own learning. So step one, like you start a business from scratch. Ideally your living room is a classroom. Your car is a mobile classroom. You are literally spending an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours a day on YouTube University, or watching online, or taking online courses, or listening to audiobooks, or listening to podcasts like this one. And maybe you're working on or in the business 40, 50, 60 hours a week, but you also need to be working on yourself 10, 20, 30 hours a week in terms of reading, watching stuff on YouTube, taking courses, and so on. So step one, like get in the game in terms of like personal growth. And then there's something you'll learn. You'll go on YouTube University, and like YouTube University is not a real thing, but like this is how I call like the ether of YouTube and all the stuff that's on there. And like you'll start to realize that yes, you can learn anything for free. But a lot of times there is a premium course that you can pay for that'll save you a lot of time, and it'll save you a lot of headache. And I'm not saying all online courses are good. And matter of fact, that's kind of the crappy thing. Most of them suck. 95% of them suck and aren't worth the money. But there are like there's like an elite tier of like coaches of people who have dedicated their life to the mastery of a certain skill set that really do pour their soul into it, that are worth paying for. And for me, I've probably bought maybe 20 or 30 online courses in my lifetime. And these are not cheap courses. These are $5, $10, $15,000 courses. And they're not get rich quick schemes. Anybody that's got a Lambo in the video, run. Anybody that's like on a yacht, run. Like you want a guy with his laptop and you're over the shoulder, or a gal who is literally tactically showing you what they have spent a decade mastering. That's what I've found. And so I've bought courses for product design, search engine optimization, for coding. I had to teach myself how to code. That was one of the big things that I learned. It's like I can watch a million online tutorials about how to code on YouTube, but really buying the premium course saved me a lot of time.
And
yes,
sometimes these courses come with like, I know my courses come with Facebook support and things, and just being able to ask the coach a question is massive instead of trying to search for more videos.
Absolutely. It saves you a lot of time. Now, if you don't have the money, grind it out on the free stuff for a couple of years until you got the money to buy the premium one. And then when you buy the premium one, think through it. Like, imagine the person that you already know you wish that they were like in the trenches with you, that's the course you want to buy. Don't go buy a course from somebody that you've never watched any of their other stuff. Like, because everybody that's in the online coaching space should be putting out like a layer of free stuff, and like the free stuff really will get you 80% of the way, but you need that last 20%. And the only way you can get that last 20% is, hey, at a certain point in time, you have to compensate this person, and that's how you get there. For me, that's been a big fulcrum. So it's like, on the one hand, don't just go buy every online course that's out there. But on the other hand, at a certain point in time, you're going to need to spend a little bit of money to get to the premium level of information for somebody who's just done it.
I think my biggest thing was I actually bought a program for $17,000. I went to the first call and I hated it. And it's the only time in my life I've ever asked for a refund, and I was denied one. And I believe in being I believe in being true to my word. I went there eyes wide open, so I paid the man his money, right? Because he didn't put a gun to my head and say buy this course, right? Like, he didn't force me into it. I did it. I'm an adult woman, and I can make these decisions, and I can make my own mistakes too. But after about a couple of months, I caught myself beating myself up over it. I was really like, oh God, why did I do this? Da, 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 da. But then, that was my cue to catch my own behavior, look at it. And I looked at what led me to buying that program. And what I realized was I bought it from the energy of I should learn this, as opposed to I desire to learn this. Oh my God, I got every single penny of value from the 17 grand from that lesson. Because sometimes I find, like, even if you you will, everything's a learning experience. Everything is a learning experience. Either you're learning it in the course or you learn it outside the course. But in that moment, that 17 grand was worth every single penny, when I realized I have no business buying anything from the energy of should. I have to be in the energy of desire. Like, I totally desire to learn this. I totally desire to be in this person's energy field. I totally desire to be in this community. That's the best energy to buy from. But if you're buying from, like, well, I should learn this because everyone says this is great. Where are you in that equation, right? Like, you're so in your mind. And it was worth every penny of the $17,000, even though I only went to one call, because that was the lesson that I needed from that teacher.
Very, very self-aware if you look at it that way. I love that. That 17 grand is going to save you 170 grand.
Oh my
God.
Or
maybe 1.7 million.
So much money.
Because that lesson,
so much money.
It's like what is the space? Where is this coming from when I'm making this decision? And it's a big decision.
Yeah.
And I've made mistakes like that too. And for me, a lot of times is trying to delegate stuff that I have no idea how to do. Like, one time I hired a social media marketer for like 30 grand, and I didn't invest any time learning like the 80-20 of social media marketing. And so I made the wrong hire because I didn't know what I was doing. And it didn't work out. I lost $20,000. And then I took 3 months, learned all the basics that I needed to learn on social media marketing. Then I could hire the person I wanted to hire. So that was a tax. It was a stupid tax that I paid to do the hard thing I should have done the first time. So yeah, I definitely can empathize with what you're talking about. I love the way you look at it.
Yeah, and I think we have to look at it. It's everything. It's you don't fail backwards. There is a way that when you align your mind, you can fail forwards. Always fail forwards. Right. And that was like,
that's right.
But not only has it helped me, but now I get to pass that $17,000 lesson on to my clients. And the thing that's happened inside my communities is I tell people, don't buy my program if you're not desiring it. If you think you should learn this is not for you. Wait until you're in desire when you're in desire. So the quality of client that's coming in is so much higher than what I had before, because I'm so honest and upfront, and I'm just like, you know what? If you're in should, I'm not the girl for you. Like, don't buy. But if you're in desire, you truly feel like I desire to be in this woman's energy, I desire to be in this community, I desire to learn this, perfect. Because then I know my clients are in a place where they're open and available for the information that I have for them.
Then it goes back to what we were saying earlier. You really empathetically want to help these people get what they want.
Exactly.
And that, hey, don't do this if is part of that. It's like, I only want the people who I can help. And it goes back, you're just congruent with how the universe operates. Otherwise, you know, if you're showing you're on the yacht with the Lambo and it's like get rich in 6 months, you know, that stuff works for a short period of time. And
I think
it always, like, what goes around comes around. It always does.
absolutely. And I think, I think you talk a lot about the universe. And I think, I see universal energy as infinite and eternal. And then human energy, not it's not quite universal, but human energy is more give it to me now. I want a quick fix.
Yeah,
Let me sort this problem immediately. It's not really like, it's more finite. And I think that really is a definition of a human being, because we have a finite number of years on this planet and all of those things, to without going too deep into the philosophical part. But and I think, are you building a flash in the pan business, or are you building a long-term venture that is going to sustain you for years and years and years? And I think if you align it with universal energy, in the fact that you're willing to go in increments, you're willing to go, like, I always think of an acorn when growing money, because like the entire blueprint for the oak tree is inside the acorn. But
that's right.
nature, but
It's
nature
amazing,
is,
isn't it?
yeah, is it? It's just, it blows my mind, right? Because when you see those big, big, big oak trees, you're like, holy
Yeah,
crap, they're like 200 years old, But everything was in that tiny little acorn. Every branch, every leaf, everything that lifespan of that oak tree was going to go through. But nature was willing to take the 200 years to get to the bigger
that's
picture.
right.
And I always think of, am I looking for the quick flash in the pan, or am I willing, is this important to me? And if it is important to me, am I willing to take my time to, and the irony of this is that once you relax and you say, okay, I'm willing to take my time, it actually exponentially goes faster than when you're trying to find all the quick solutions to it.
Yeah, it's like thinking about the world in these philosophical contexts help you get through the ups and downs of the tactical pieces of starting a business. And in business, and really in life, if you do things that are easy, business is going to be hard. If you do things that are hard, business is going to be easy. And a lot of these like long-term bets, these long-term payouts, these like consistency, these things that take a long time to like mature, they're hard. But if you do them for enough time, business becomes easy. And the next thing you know, you wake up 5, 10 years later, you got a great team, you've got good culture, your customers are getting value, you're making money, you're reinvesting money, and things are going well. Whereas if you hadn't made those long-term bets a decade ago, if you hadn't watered the acorn, if you hadn't put it in good soil, if you hadn't tended to it, like, you're going to be beating your head against the wall for a decade, and then you're going to be bitter, and you're going to think, oh, it's a rigged game and you can't make it anymore and all of this stuff. I can't get capital, so I can't get started. All these excuses people come up with. You don't want to be one of those people. And, take the long view, take the long approach. I guarantee it's worth it. I guarantee it'll be, for me, I can speak from experience, the best thing I've ever done with my life.
I know. And you know what? Like, I just think what an amazing example your first business really was, right? Because it really blows my mind that in 10 years you made $10 million when you sold it, right? And obviously after expenses and everything. But if that little dude that had his little push mower was told, like, I just need you to show up consistently every single day, and for the next 10 years, I'm going to pay you $1 million for every single year, like, how would you push that mower? You'd be like, oh my God,
I wouldn't have, first off, I wouldn't have believed you. Second, yeah, you really got to have to think in those terms. It goes back to the Warren Buffett. It goes back to the Warren Buffett thing. He looked at $100 like $1,000.
Exactly, right.
Every day.
Like every day.
That's right.
And we got to look at that. We got to look at that 10 people as that's your gateway to your 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people is your gateway to 100,000 people, and it just exponentially grows.
Exactly.
I love that. Oh my goodness.
Exactly the way it
really
works.
enjoyed this conversation. So tell us, Bryan, where can people find you? And if they're in the States, I have a lot of clients in the States, so you got to get on his little app, because Oh my God. I have just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
house.
Life's too short to mow your own yard. Don't waste time cutting your
When
own
are you
grass.
coming to Scotland? Because when's your
We
app
will
coming
be
to
in
Scotland?
UK. We'll be in UK within the next 2 years. Canada, Australia, and UK are going to happen. Right now, we have got a few more cities in the United States we have to expand into, but we're nationwide in the United States. If you live there, download GreenPal in the App Store or Play Store. You'll get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service. Don't mow your own yard. Life's too short. Anybody wants to reach out to me personally, I invest all of my time in Instagram. You can find me at Bryan M. Clayton at Instagram. Shoot me a follow, drop me a DM there.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I can't wait until you're in Scotland because we just bought a house with 1.6 acres of land, and
Oh,
we,
wow.
we we need to go and buy a ride-on mower now.
Well, we'll be there soon, so you don't have to waste time mowing that grass anymore.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that we get an opportunity to connect in the future as well.
Awesome, Joanna. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome.